Hello, I'm Chris Hartwell, and welcome to The Heartbeat, the place where I talk about just a few of the things that make this little guy tick. Today, I'll be talking about Episode 1 of Season 2 of HBO's The Leftovers. Join me, won't you? Alright, just to give you a rundown of how today's episode is going to work, I'm going to start by talking about a few of the positives from this episode, a few of the negatives, and then kind of wrap up with talking about what I'm looking forward to next week. But back up to the top for the positives, I really feel like the second season of any television show is kind of the make it or break it moment for that television series. And what I mean by that is it really has to prove that it can evolve and change naturally, while at the same time not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. And so often you will see television series build their first season to that kind of breaking point. Things are about to dramatically change, or something has dramatically changed. And then when you roll into the second season, they deal with that repercussion, but they deal with it very quickly. They wrap it up all nice and neat within 1 to 2 episodes, and we're back to the same old procedural that we experienced in Season 1. And for me, that's the death of a show, when it can evolve and change. And I am happy to report that Damon Lindelof has really, at least in this first episode anyways, proven that he can evolve and change the show in a natural, interesting way. Lindelof himself has compared this second season of The Leftovers to the second season of The Wire, which is a really great comparison because in both instances, we are in the second season introduced to a brand new location and brand new set of characters, and then slowly allow our first season's characters to come into that new environment where we're able to kind of view them from a different perspective. And what's really great about the television canvas is you're allowed to kind of play things at a much slower pace than you obviously would play them in films, and Lindelof is the master at that. I loved how bold and confident he was in his storytelling in this first episode. For instance, he spent almost 47 minutes away from any of the characters that we knew from Season 1, really allowing us as an audience to get to know and accept this new environment. We weren't just counting down the minutes until the Garveys showed up. We were really getting to know these new characters, getting to know this new location, and investing in it for what it was. And when the Garveys and Nora finally did show up, it was this really kind of unassuming moment, seen directly from John's point of view, as the stars of the first season kind of just casually walk out of their car into this new environment that we've been getting to know. Another element that I enjoyed was this very natural but clearly intentional shift in tone. It's an excellent example of how Lindelof really does listen to his audience, realizing that the first season was kind of viewed as this bleak, despairing experience. Immediately from the outset, we are introduced to this brand new tone with a new title sequence. And in fact, it took me a second to adjust to it, and I even kind of looked at my watch thinking, am I on the right channel right now? Is this The Leftovers? And as the episode continued, we continued to experience this lighter, more uplifting tone with the different characters and their interactions. Fortunately for us, I really do feel like Lindelof is as good at writing those light, fun moments as he is those dark, bleak moments. Having a lot of very fun interactions, whether it be the knock-knock jokes, or the search for crickets, or stacking books atop a sleeping father. And speaking of such things, I really enjoyed the new characters. John Murphy leading the way for me. He was a very chill, relaxed, laid-back character that I instantly liked. And I really enjoyed the rest of his family as well. In my mind, it really was similar to the penultimate episode in Season 1, where we saw the Garveys before the departure. And it was this family that seemed to be picture perfect. They really seemed to have everything together. They really seemed to be unified, but actually not so much. And I feel like this is going to be a prime example of that. We've already been introduced to enough enigmatic pieces to each of those characters, as well as differences in their personality, that I feel like when things start to get really heated and unfortunate, i.e., daughters go missing, I feel like those differences will really lead to an eruption, which I can't wait for and I'm sort of dreading at the same time. Don't get me wrong, this is not a completely different show tonally. It's very clear that Lindelof and Perrotta are still behind this show and able to infuse that kind of gnawing dread. And it's just in little moments, subtle moments that I love. So for instance, when Matt and Mary Jameson are introduced at the church and Matt's about to start talking about something that the pastor doesn't want, he kind of steps in and kind of silences him. Or for instance, when John drops his spoon down the garbage disposal and Max Richards' music comes in and the camera angles just shift slightly and we're really put on edge and we know, oh boy, this guy's got some serious issues that are really going to come to the surface very soon. And both writers really do continue to prove that though in the logline, The Leftovers remains a rather genre show, that being 2% of the world's population disappears, they really can deal with that subject matter in a very authentic, real way, which I greatly appreciate. As far as stand-up moments go, I really enjoyed the backyard barbecue between the Murphys and the Garveys. It was great to see those two very different families come together and to see their differences already start to bring interesting and potentially disastrous things out of one another. Also, I have to mention the fantastic end tag with "The water's gone." And we pull back wide and we see that all the water's been emptied from the spring that's run through there. Another one of the huge positives from this episode, which was definitely something that I found in the first season, and it seems like it's definitely holding true in the second season, is just how they deal with and present the themes in this show. They're really done in a very subtle, artful way. So for instance, we have the visual motif of the bird. We see that in the opening sequence of this episode, as well as where Mrs. Murphy unearths that box, opens it up, and there's a live bird inside. Do these birds mean something? Are they leading these characters somewhere? Are they leading them towards disaster? Are they leading them towards hope? We also have our characters constantly being reminded of the unexplainable and the things that they can't quite put their finger on. So whether it's the cricket that's constantly plaguing Mr. Murphy or the spoon that disappears into a garbage disposal, there's ever that reminder and that fear that things can disappear without warning and without explanation and could potentially disappear again. I think too, the beautiful location of Miracle, Texas plays straight into the themes of the show. We are just introduced to all these different characters with all these very interesting superstitions. So whether it's the water from the spring, or it's the I must always wear my wedding dress, or it's the I have to bring a goat into this diner and slit its throat. It is just really fascinating to see what people cling to and what superstitions they must repeat time and time again to ensure that things don't change and that their lives remain stable. And I want to use that to segue directly into talking about the characters, and I really feel like what drives a show is what the characters desire. And so time and time again, Lindelof has said, look folks, I'm not going to tell you what happened to the 2%. And I think the best way that he can continue to say that is not just in interviews, but in the show, ensuring that the characters aren't seeking out that answer. And in the second season, I do not think that that is the primary motivation for any of these characters. The primary motivation for almost all these characters, and it's said a few times by characters, is to find safety and to find stability. And Miracle, Texas really does provide that for a lot of people. And I feel like in this first episode, John Murphy is the prime example of someone clinging to and looking for stability. And I think that's really encapsulated well in the scene where he drops the spoon down the garbage disposal. You can just tell this is a man who doesn't want to reach into the darkness. He doesn't want to look too hard for the thing that has disappeared, fearing that he himself may fall into that thing and disappear too. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out in regards to his missing daughter, Evie. It's a situation where, now that she's disappeared, I can see him really fearing pursuing her and looking for her, fearing that he himself may disappear along with her. To move into some of the things that I didn't like about this episode, honestly, I really kind of have to nitpick because I really did enjoy most of this episode. I felt like, though it grew on me, and by the end of the opening sequence, I did enjoy it and I liked what was happening there, the opening scene with the woman giving birth felt tonally just a little off to me. I appreciated what Lindelof was trying to do by getting Max Richter to do this kind of comedic music that went along with the birthing sequence, but that tone didn't quite work for me, and I kind of just ended up laughing at something versus engaging with it. As far as the elements that I'm really excited to continue to explore, I'm really excited just to learn more about Miracle. What are some of these rules that the Murphys have? On what authority are they kicking people out of the town? What's up with the earthquakes and the cracks in the pavement? What brought the Garveys to Miracle? What's up with the cut on Garvey's head? What did Garvey really see in the living room when he and John were in the kitchen icing the cake? I also just love, and I'm really looking forward to the fact that this season really clearly has a narrative engine. That narrative engine being what happened to Evie Murphy. And in that sense, it has a bit of a similar vibe to the television show Twin Peaks, which I adore. So those are my thoughts anyways. I would still love to know what you guys think, so please comment below. Let me know what elements worked for you from this episode, what elements didn't, what were some of the standout moments. Also, any predictions for this second season? Definitely comment below and let me know. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to the Living Reminders blog, as well as the Living Reminders podcast. Mary and Blake have some great stuff going on over there, so I'll leave some links down below so you can find both of those. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.